right, man. So this is the year-end wrap version of the Filth. I'm back on the Filth with you for the second time. I know we talked a little bit about it on the last podcast episode, but we wanted to kind of sum up the year here, man. It's been a pretty amazing year of podcasting, regardless of it being a very bad year in a lot of other ways.
Yeah, I wanted to do a little recap for everybody. The group has been going off, the Chris Makes a Podcast Facebook group, and this was just give you something else to chew on at the end of the year here.
Yeah, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Our list of guests, we've done 31 episodes now, has been incredible. Right off the bat, we had John Feldman, and I thought that was pretty relatable to this time of year because he talked about here in your bedroom. And as it turns out, he wrote that song about a girl that he had a crush on, and then they finally got together on New Year's Eve. He woke up on New Year's Day and wrote that song. What a perfect first episode, and what a perfect thing to talk about right now.
No, it's been crazy. And every episode has been unique in where the inspiration came for the songs. That's what's so cool about it. It's every episode's the same, but it's different, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, then we had Jarrett Reddick from Bowling for Soup was up next. You got to talk a little bit about working with the late Adam Schlesinger, who we lost this year to COVID. It's very sad, but it was cool to hear Jarrett talk about that. Then your buddy Roger came on the next episode. We didn't waste any time in getting Raj on, and I thought that was a lot of fun. And then we had what people have been talking to us about for all year, and I'm sure they'll continue to talk about. We had Bill Stevenson of Descendants / 50 other projects and producing on for an episode. And man, oh man, what an episode.
Yeah, I obviously not planned at all. I had heard a lot of the backstory, at least about One More Day, the Descendants track, and I wasn't really familiar with Steve's Boy until about a year prior to the episode. I was at a festival with Bill, and he played, told me about the song, and I went and listened to it. But again, I knew about the backstory, but I didn't know Bill was gonna get that raw and emotional. It was incredible.
So Kathy and I, my sister and I, we tried to maintain his house thing there where he could stay in his house and, we could just take care of him. But at a certain point when he felt like he could just make his way to the bathroom and back, he kind of just was trying to tell me to go away and that he doesn't need me to take care of him. And but I didn't go away. And this is kind of what Steve's Boy is about, is just about me having to kind of fight him for him to allow me to take care of him.
Yeah, anyone who hasn't listened to that episode yet should go back and take a listen. That was what I would like to call a very special episode of Chris Makes a Podcast. And it was only 4 episodes, and we've had some other very special episodes as well. Moving on, we had Anthony Ranieri from Bayside, where I kind of we were kind of feeling it out, and I kind of did the co-hosting thing on that, which later we decided, we'll do a wrap at the end. Maybe I'll pop in here and again on episodes. But we tried that out on that episode. That was a lot of fun. We had Jen Pop from the Bomb Pops, Tim from Rise Against, your producer, Howard Benson. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, Howard's episode was great. People love that, especially the tech nerd folks that were really into, all the gear and Pro Tools and stuff. I got a lot of good comments about that episode.
Yeah, that was a great one. We had Angelo Moore of Fishbone fame on. That was really funny that he thought it was going to be video. He got all dressed up, looked super cool, and then we had to tell him, sorry, man, it's audio only. But what a cool, funny guy.
Yeah, that was hilarious. He was just totally all getting spiffied up. He's like, man, just give me one more second. I just got to get my hair. I got to do this and that. And it's like, Angelo, this is just audio.
Yeah, that was awesome. Then we had Ryan Key from Yellow Card talking about Ocean Avenue. Aaron Barrett, Real Big Fish, talking about beer. What a jam. Chris number 2, my Pittsburgh buddy from Anti-Flag. Cyrus from Newfound Glory talking about Hit or Miss. Then we had Matt Skiba. That was a pretty badass episode. I knew people were really excited about that one.
Yeah, Matt was great. The whole story behind radio was fascinating to me. I loved it. Just the fact that he went out back in the studio and wrote it in 2 minutes, and the band immediately loved it and was immediately questioning how he wrote it so quickly. That was a cool story.
Yeah. Then next up, we had one that I know was really special for you, Chris. When Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick came on. Not only, I don't know, I'm assuming a big influence on you, but also Less Than Jake covered the song on Anthem album. Less Than Jake covered the song we were talking about. And we had an especially weird moment on that one, if you want to set up this next clip there, Chris.
Yeah, you know, I grew up listening to Cheap Trick. Rick is iconic, the checkerboard guitar. The band has just been, I don't know, I kind of think of Less Than Jake a little bit in terms of Cheap Trick and just like how they're just road dogs. They've just been on the road their whole career. They just keep at it, you know. They're a working class band, and fan of the band, of course. Less Than Jake covered Surrender, and then we get into the to the episode, and Rick decides that he's going to tell me about the time he saw my parents having sex. So here it is.
You know, just think about it. You know, it's like the ultimate. It's like, oh my God, I walked into my parents were having. Oh no, God! You know, it's like George Costanza. You know, his mother walked in while he's jerking off. You know, it's like, oh God! And it's like, oh, this is the worst thing on earth.
Oh my God, that's great. That's great. So
hey, Chris, did you ever walk in on your parents when they were trying to conceive something besides you?
Evidently I did when I was about 2, but I don't remember. My parents told me, that they, I walked in when the deed was happening. Maybe and my brother's 2.5 years younger than me. So maybe that's when they were making my bro. I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I was there. I was there watching.
Oh my gosh, this is great. I can't wait to tell my parents. I'm going to call them later and let them know. Rick Nielsen was outside the window.
Was there?
Yeah, man, that was a pretty memorable moment from that episode for sure, to say the least. Did your parents actually ever hear that episode?
Oh, they heard the episode. Yeah, they went straight back to 1976. They're wondering who, you know, they heard the blinds getting rustled, so now they know what it was. Nice.
Hey, in general, do your friends and family listen to the podcast?
Yeah. My mom and dad tune in every week. My brother and his wife, and tons of friends. You know, so yeah, it's been great. The outpouring of support from my family has been kind of what it's been with Less Than Jake all these years. They've just been very, very into it and supportive.
Yeah, all my friends, Monday morning, it's crazy. It'll be like Monday, 9 a.m. My friends will already be texting me things about the episode. So we must be doing something right, because my friends would, if our podcast wasn't good, my friends would be like, yo, your podcast is boring. So we're pretty brutally honest with each other. So I think we're doing something right.
Nah, that's awesome, man.
Then next up, after Rick, we had another legendary guest. We had Brian Baker. Talking about Dag Nasty's Can I Say. Then after that, one of my recommendation, up-and-coming Pittsburgh R&B artist, Sierra Sellers, which, dude, so many people have talked to me about that episode. It was a little out of the box for us, which I want to get more out of the box in 2021. But that was such a great conversation you had with Sierra, man.
Yeah, you know, Sierra kind of gave us the inspiration for the Band You Might Not Know segment, because, you know, she's relatively unknown artist, at least right now, outside of Pittsburgh. And you had mentioned, you know, I think there's something about her, you know, let's get her on the show before she becomes a household name. And I'd like to do a few more of those. I think it's great to give unknown artists a chance. And her song's great, and she's great. And I like the fact that we've been able to turn some fans onto her.
Yeah, man, I love doing Band You Might Not Know. I'm gonna take credit for that only because in a lot of people's eyes, my band Punchline might be a band you might not know. So I was like, how cool would it be if we featured a band that most people wouldn't know on each episode? And I think that we've turned some people on to some new music.
That's right.
Yeah, so I think, you know, maybe I give a lot of credit to you too, man, because you agreed to do it.
Well, I wanted to do co-host. You don't know, might not know.
Yeah, that's right. We tried. After that, we had Trevor Keith talking about Face to Face Disconnected, which is a classic punk rock jam. And then after that, we had Laura Jane Grace talking about White People for Peace by Against Me, and that was a really cool episode. And a really cool moment, which we're going to set up here, is when Laura talked about Seymour Stein stopping by, which I actually didn't know who Seymour Stein was. But Chris, if you want to set this clip up, maybe let us know who Seymour Stein is.
Yeah, Seymour Stein, the president of Sire Records. Warner Brothers, just an icon in the music business. And I guess Seymour was probably, according to Laura, pushing maybe 70. He was older fella. And Laura was in the control room. Seymour walks in and they play White People for Peace. And yeah, we'll just let the clip go from here. It's pretty cool.
So we thought it was like somebody fucking with us or something.
Yeah.
But sure enough, Seymour Stein comes waddling down the hall and into the studio. And he sits down at the console. And like Butch is just as like kind of blown away as we are that like Seymour Stein just came into the studio, and he came alone. You know, he didn't like come with an entourage, no one with him or anything. He just comes in.
He was checking on his investment.
Right.
he finds you.
Right, yeah. So he comes in and he sits down at the console, just like the naturalest thing in the world. And he's like, and we're just kind of like looking at him, you know, and he's like, well, play me something. So Butch tells Billy, who was one of the engineer we worked with, he's like, let's play him White People for Peace. So we play him White People for Peace. Song finishes. He's silent for like what feels like an eternity. He turns to Butch and he's like, well, Johnny Ramone would have either loved it or hated it.
How do you take that?
I don't know.
Yeah, that clip's pretty funny when you realize who Seymour Stein is. If you don't know, Google him. I believe he signed Madonna. It's just one small example. I think he signed the Talking Heads. I mean, I think I didn't realize what a legendary record label president, is that what he is?
President, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty wild. Next up, we had Mike Herrera. I want to peel back the curtain a little bit here. It was actually the second time we did the interview with Mike Herrera.
We lost the tracks on the first one.
We did, and Mike was generous enough to come back on. He's a podcast host himself, so I'm sure he's probably had that experience once or twice, considering he's done like 300 some episodes of his own podcast. So that was nice of him to come back. Then after that, we had Mark Hoppus, and not only did we have Mark Hoppus, who is probably the most universally known guest that we had on our podcast, arguably. We've had some pretty big names. But also, that was the first time that something from our podcast caught on. Like, we didn't expect, and especially what caught on about that episode, we didn't know or expect it. Then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my God, look at this dude. NME and Billboard and all these other publications, Kerrang, are writing about this episode of our podcast because of this one little, morsel from the episode.
That was great. All of a sudden it was about 10:30 at night. You started blowing my phone up with texts like, NME's on the story, Billboard's on the story, Kerrang magazine's on the story, and then it just kept going. Next morning we woke up and there was just even more publications. I think all in all it was maybe 15, 16 different publications that ran the story and it went viral. And very cool, and a very cool moment where Mark open mouth insert foot. So we'll take you to the clip right now.
I'll tell you where the very, very origin of the song was there's a Green Day song called JAR that's on the Angus soundtrack.
Yeah.
It starts off with this bass intro that's really rad. And I was messing around on guitar trying to learn that, and I kind of messed up the progression, and I played it incorrectly, and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool. And that was the basis for the opening riff of the song, was me trying to learn how to play JAR on guitar and messing it up and coming up with something that I liked that was different than that.
Yeah, man, that was awesome. And I felt like we were gaining some momentum with the podcast, but I feel like Mark Hoppus kind of brought a lot of new people into the fold, and we're very appreciative to him. And I felt like we had such a streak of just like hit songs, because next up, I was lucky enough over the past decade plus to get to know Robin Wilson of the Gin Blossoms. Punchline toured with the Gin Blossoms in 2019 and have done many shows with them over the years and got to know him. And Robin came on and talked about Till I Hear It From You. And not only did he talk about it, but he also was the first guest to play the song live on on the podcast. And if you haven't heard it yet, you should go back and listen to it. That was an amazing moment. I'm sure you'd agree, Chris.
I mean, it was one of my favorite episodes. Just I had never talked to Robin before. I only, had heard, secondhand stories through you, Chris, and it was so cool because I felt like I had known him forever. It was so easy to talk to him. There was other guests that I've known for years that it wasn't like it was hard to talk to them, but the conversation just didn't seem to flow like it did with Robin. It was so cool, and to be able to get to meet him through the podcast and playing acoustic, which he suggested, which was really cool. It was an awesome episode.
Yeah, man. I love that episode. And then next up, I love this episode too. I had never talked to the dude before. You knew him. I was a fan of his music, but we had Jeff Rosenstock up next. I feel like that was the funniest of, and he had some sad, serious moments in that episode for sure, especially when talking about this song. About the song Nausea. If you haven't listened, go back and listen. It's an amazing episode. But he just cracked me up the whole time. But the clip that we're about to set up here is about how Jeff had played in some bands and maybe hadn't achieved enough success with those bands to be a full-time musician, was about to get a full-time job. and then this clip that we're about to play tells the story about how he was in his interview and the song that we talked about in the episode just kind of popped into his head.
Yeah, this episode kind of rivaled the Bill Stevenson episode in terms of tugging at your heartstrings. It was very sad where the song's inspiration came from, but also crazy and uplifting in the sense of what you just said, that here he is at a job interview and doesn't want to take another job, wants to do music, is kind of at a crossroads, and this song was bore out of that. It's very cool. So let's hit that clip.
And I was like on my way to a job interview, and I was like out the door, and I just kind of like walked over to the piano, just like plunk around a little bit anxiously before I left for this job interview that I was like really hoping I would get, and kind of just played out the first like verse of Nausea, and it was like, oh shit, that's good. I was like, oh fuck, and like recorded it to my phone. It was like, oh fuck, and then I was just kind of like thinking about it throughout like the job interview that I was supposed to be paying attention during, and like just kind of like it building a bit in my head, and like just over time like turning into a song,
Yeah, that was great, man. And then after that, we had your fellow Floridian native, Chris Caraba, who, what a nice guy, what a great story behind what a great song. And yeah, very, very nice dude. And I knew that he loved Less Than Jake too, man. He's from Florida.
Yeah, we have definitely have history with Chris. Played with his old band back in the 90s, and then of course he went to Further Seems Forever, and then just carved out this insane solo career with Dashboard. It's just unreal. The guy just mad props to Chris.
Yeah, and then next up we had Matt Pryor from the Get Up Kids talking about one of my favorite songs from like our world of music in general. Holiday is just like the most rocking of songs in our world. That was a great episode. Then next up we had my bandmate Steve Sabasly, which that was really cool, Chris, to hear you break down a song by my band.
Yeah, Steve, gosh, no, I said this before in an episode. You guys are still kids to us. So you guys were the kid band we took under our wing years ago, and dear friends. And it was cool to talk to Steve in this capacity. Without the podcast, I probably never would have broke down a Punchline song with Steve. So that was very cool.
Yeah, man, that was really cool to hear. And then next up, we had the brothers from Lit, AJ and Jeremy Popoff, talking about My Own Worst Enemy. Like, what a gigantic song. And that was just cool to hear the story behind it, man.
Yeah, our first duo together on the show, which was neat. I kind of told those guys, I kind of need you together. They both wrote the song. They're brothers. I thought it would be good to have both their perspectives on it, and it worked out great. It was a really cool story to an ginormous hit.
Yeah, and talking about ginormous hits, next we had Travie McCoy talking about Gym Class Heroes, Cupid's Chokehold, which that was really cool to hear about that song. That was the first song, it's a pop song, but it also has the hip hop element. It was the first song like that we had on the podcast, and I thought that was a great episode. Next up, we had Joe Escalante talking about, that was our holiday episode, talking about Oi to the World, which I thought that was really cool. And then I got to host and have you talk about Johnny Quest Thinks We're Sellouts, which was really fun, man.
Yeah, arguably the best hosting of the whole podcast was because you hosted. We got great feedback for that episode. You've been wanting to have me on since we started this thing, and it finally happened. I thought it was great. You know, it was different to be on this side of the glass, so it was cool.
Yeah, and then our last episode of the year, we had Derek Whibley from Sum 41, and dude, this is our newest episode, and there has been this controversy over doctor versus dentist, which has blown up in our Facebook group. Like I can't even allow all the posts to post because people will just get annoyed. But I don't know, man. I hear dentist.
Yeah, it's crazy. I hear dentist, and every 8th time I'll hear doctor. Still, I don't, and it depends what version I listen to, and it's I know a lot of people have commented. It's like the blue dress, yellow dress, or whatever that thing was flying around the internet a couple years ago. It's the same thing. It's just, what do you hear? And I'm really shocked that this has never been brought up on a large scale like this before, because it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, man. So 31 awesome episodes down. This podcast has definitely been a highlight of a rough year, and a rough year for all of us, for the world in general. But for us, this has been a nice distraction. And I mean, regardless of what happens with the pandemic in 2021, we are going to continue doing this podcast. People ask us that all the time. Like, are you going to stop doing this podcast once the pandemic is over? Well, first of all, I can't wait for the pandemic to be over. And second of all, the answer is yes.
Yeah, no, this wasn't just some fleeting thing. We decided to start from downtime from touring with our respective bands. This is gonna continue. I want to thank each and every one of you out there, everyone that's joined Chris DeMakes a Podcast Facebook group. Your continued support means a lot, and we'll see you all in 2021. Happy New Year.